I've been a trucker as long as I can remember, hauling goods across the vast expanse of Mexico and into the United States. There's a certain rhythm to life on the road, a comforting predictability that lulls you into a sense of security. But let me tell you, that sense of security can be shattered in an instant, turned into a chilling tale of the unexplained, the kind that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. This is a story about one such journey, a journey that still haunts my dreams and sends shivers down my spine, a journey that I wish I could forget, but the memory is as stubborn as a bloodstain. It all started on a day that was as ordinary as any other. My boss handed me a route that I had never taken before, a route that would take me through the desolate stretches of northern Mexico. I remember taking a look at the map, tracing the winding roads with my finger, feeling a strange sense of unease. But I shrugged it off. After all, I was a seasoned trucker. I had seen it all, or so I thought. I couldn't have been more wrong. As I set off into the night, I had no idea that this journey would turn into a nightmarish ordeal, that I would come face to face with the inexplicable, the paranormal. I didn't know then that this was a route that I should have never taken, a route that was to become my worst nightmare. But as I started the engine, and the familiar hum filled my ears, I felt a chill run down my spine. I shook it off, attributing it to the chill of the night. But as I would soon find out, it was a premonition of the chilling events that were about to unfold. Cursed be the day my boss handed me that route. It was a moonlit night, dark and windy. I was behind the wheel of my rig, threading my way through a desolate stretch of road that snaked its way through the remote corners of northern Mexico. My only company was the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle from the radio. Navigating the winding road, a creeping sense of unease took hold of me, as if something was watching, lurking from the shadows. I brushed it off as nerves, attributing it to the isolation of the open road. The moon was my only source of light, casting long and eerie shadows that danced across the barren landscape. It seemed as if the night itself was alive, whispering secrets in the rustling wind that sent shivers down my spine. The road ahead was a ribbon of darkness stretching endlessly into the unknown. Every mile felt like a leap into the abyss, the uncertainty of what lay ahead adding to the growing sense of dread. The silence was deafening, broken only by the steady drone of the engine and the occasional haunting howl of the wind. But then, out of nowhere, a thick fog descended, obscuring the road and reducing visibility to almost nothing. It was as if the world had been swallowed up, leaving only me and my truck. I slowed down, straining my eyes to make out anything in the swirling fog that was closing in around me. The headlights barely pierced through the dense mist, casting an eerie glow on the road ahead. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, a primal instinct warning me of danger. My heart pounded in my chest as I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles white against the dim light of the dashboard. The sense of unease turned into an unsettling fear, a feeling that I was not alone on this desolate road. But then, things took a strange turn. Out of the fog, a figure emerged, a specter in the night that sent chills down my spine. My heart skipped a beat as I realized I was no longer alone in the darkness. Out of nowhere, a thick fog appeared that darkened the road and reduced visibility to near zero. It was as if the night had decided to wrap itself around my truck, swallowing the path ahead in its chilly embrace. I slowed my vehicle, straining my eyes to discern anything through the swirling mist. That's when I spotted it, reflected in the side mirror. A figure, a man, walking towards my truck, his pale face illuminated by the dim glow of my headlights. It was a sight that seemed out of place, a lone figure emerging from the fog on a desolate stretch of road. I hit the brakes, the truck shuddering to a halt. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched the figure draw closer. There was a certain dread that hung in the air, a feeling of unease that prickled at the back of my neck. As the figure neared, I could see him more clearly. His skin was ashen, his face gaunt. But what truly sent a chill down my spine were his eyes. His eyes were hollow sockets devoid of life, and his clothes hung from his emaciated body like tattered rags. His gaze was empty, yet it bore into me, a silent plea etched onto his spectral face. I could feel my pulse quicken, my breath hitching in my throat. This was no ordinary hitchhiker. Without thinking, I opened my truck door, ready to offer help. The harsh wind blew against my face, carrying with it a chill that seemed to seep into my very bones. The figure had stopped moving, standing still in the glow of my headlights. His hollow eyes seemed to bore into me, piercing the veil of fog that hung between us. I stepped out onto the road, my boots crunching on the gravel beneath. My heart pounded in my chest like a drum, echoing the eerie silence of the desolate highway. I called out to the figure, my voice shaky and uncertain, but there was no response. He just stood there, a ghostly silhouette against the darkness. As I approached, a sense of dread washed over me. Something was terribly wrong. The man looked gaunt, his clothes tattered and worn. His eyes, once hollow, were now filled with an otherworldly light. It was as if he was not of this world, but a specter, trapped in a realm between the living and the dead. And then, in the blink of an eye, he was gone, vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the chilling wind and the deafening silence. I stood there, in the middle of the road, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Had I seen a ghost? A lost soul trapped in a perpetual nightmare? Shaken, I turned back towards my truck. The cold metal handle felt like ice against my trembling hand. I climbed back into the cab, my mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. I couldn't stay here, alone in the dark, surrounded by the unknown. But before I could drive away, I heard it. The sound of 100 voices, moaning in agony and despair. It echoed through the fog, surrounding me on all sides, until I thought I would go mad from the cacophony. It was a sound that would haunt my dreams for years to come, a chilling reminder of the night I met the vanishing man. Terrified, I slammed my foot on the accelerator, desperate to escape the nightmare that had enveloped me. My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out the hum of the engine and the shrieking cacophony of voices. The fog outside seemed to swirl in my rearview mirror as if it were alive, reaching out with ghostly tendrils, trying to pull me back. My grip tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white against the dim light from the dashboard. The truck roared to life, lurching forward, as if it too felt the urgency of escape. The road beneath the tires was a mere blur, swallowed by the fog that had turned the world into an eerie, monochrome landscape. As I drove, the night seemed to stretch out endlessly, the road a winding serpent disappearing into the veil of fog. Every nerve in my body was on edge, the adrenaline pumping through my veins, forcing me to push harder, faster. The truck's headlights cut through the fog like a beacon, the only guide in this desolate landscape. The voices, those haunting echoes of despair, began to fade into the distance, drowned out by the roar of the engine and the rushing wind. The rearview mirror showed nothing but the dissipating fog, like a bad dream fading with the dawn. And then, as if a divine hand had waved, the fog began to lift. It receded slowly, crawling back to the shadowy corners from where it had emerged, revealing the familiar sights of the road. The moon, once obscured, now hung like a silver medallion in the sky, casting a pallid glow on the desolate highway. Suddenly, the world didn't seem so terrifying anymore. The road, once a path into the unknown, now appeared as it always had, a stretch of asphalt flanked by barren desert, leading me towards home. My heart rate began to slow, the adrenaline rush subsiding, replaced by a sense of relief so profound it was almost tangible. And as I drove down the road, the fog slowly began to lift, until all that was left was the empty road stretching out before me. I never spoke of that night to anyone for fear they'd take me for mad or dismiss it as the ramblings of a tired mind. But the memory of that encounter, as chilling as the mist that shrouded it, has remained with me, imprinted in the corners of my consciousness like a phantom echo. I've spent countless nights pondering over the enigma, trying to make sense of the inexplicable. I've turned it over in my mind, dissected it, attempted to rationalize it. But the truth has a way of persisting, of wriggling free from the confines of logic, of standing stark and undeniable in the face of disbelief. I've come to understand that there are things on the road in the world that defy explanation. Entities that lurk in the shadows, unseen but not unfelt. Entities that exist just beyond the veil of our understanding, waiting for the opportune moment to make their presence known. They are the whispers in the wind, the chill that prickles your skin, the figures that flicker at the edge of your vision. They are the inexplicable, the unknown, the unfathomable. The road is no longer just a road to me. It's a realm of endless possibilities, a conduit between the world as we know it and the world that lies beyond our comprehension. It's a stage where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, where reality intertwines with the surreal. And now every time I find myself behind the wheel, steering my way through the winding roads, I can't help but feel a sense of trepidation mixed with intrigue. I find myself glancing at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see a spectral figure emerging from the darkness. I find myself listening to the hum of the engine, straining my ears for the faintest hint of a whisper carried by the wind. And although I may never fully understand what happened to me that night, one thing is certain: I'll never look at the road the same way again.